Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming tonight to the Nutrition 101 webinar. I'm always so excited to share this information. I've done this presentation many times, and even if you've heard me speak this before, what I'm hoping at least you'll take away one new nugget. And for those of you who have never heard this presentation before, I hope that the information is actually life-changing. I have the motto, change your plate, change your life. And what I found with some of the simple things that I'm going to share with you tonight is that it can really change the way you look and feel. So I'm excited to get going and share this information with you. Before we do that, I hope it's okay if I share a little information about my background and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Some of you have heard this my story before, so I apologize if this is a repeat. But for those of you who are new on the call, I wanted to share with you a little bit about myself and my background, and the fact that I know what it feels like to not feel great. And this, I wanted to share this picture with you because this was a picture of me, probably, now I have to think how old I am, about 8 years ago. About 8 years ago. And as you can see, I was a little puffy. That's what I always say. I looked very puffy. I was about 30 to 35 pounds overweight at the time, and I was struggling with a lot of health problems. Namely, I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 20s. I was a track athlete in high school and college, and I always had the mentality that because I was an athlete and working out 20 hours a week, that I could eat whatever I'd want because I'd work it off later. And I don't know if any of you can relate with that I'll eat that as long as I go to the gym later and burn it off. But what started happening is I started to have a lot of hormone imbalances. Like I said, I got diagnosed with endometriosis, and I actually had to have surgery in my early 20s. And that surgery, after surgery, they removed 2 softball-sized cysts from my ovaries, gave me the endometriosis diagnosis, and then told me that I would be, or put me on a drug that put me into menopause at age 20. So here I was, 20 years old, having 20 hot flashes a day, gaining 35 pounds, losing my track scholarship, and not really knowing what to do about it. I didn't want to live my life like that. So I don't know if any of you can relate to having some specific health problems going on, and kind of being at a standstill with what to do. And that led me down the path to trying to figure this out. How can I, have my health back, get my weight back down, and balance out my hormones? That's what made me pursue a master's degree in holistic nutrition. So I always let people know I'm not a registered dietitian. My background is in trying to find the root cause of what's really causing the problems in people's health. So I found that one of my root causes was a thyroid imbalance. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. For a few years, I took bioidentical thyroid medication to get back on track. I also had chronic digestive issues that, when I implemented certain dietary changes, completely went away. And I can say right now that this is a picture of me, that I lost the weight. I keep it off easily. I'm not on any drugs anymore. And my cycles are normal enough that I was able to get pregnant, and I will be hopefully, I'll be having my baby very soon. And I'm in much better health off all medications. And that really sparked the interest in me, or passion in me, to want to help other people find the root cause, because I was stuck at that early age. So that's the master's degree in nutrition. And I love my job because I get to see people change what's on their plate. And that also includes their lifestyle changes, not just their food. And I get to see them have similar results to what I did. So it's just very, very exciting. And I love what I do. So that's just a little bit about my background. And as I was personally navigating through figuring out my own health stuff, I realized that there's so much information out there about nutrition. And it can be very frustrating for people, because one day you'll hear that eggs are the best thing for you, and the next day you'll hear that if you eat an egg a day, you're going to die. So there's these vast recommendations on what makes you healthy. So I just want to encourage you tonight to keep an open mind. And I want you to type in the question screen, yes, if you're willing to keep an open mind tonight. Because what I might be teaching you might challenge what you've heard about nutrition and being healthy. So I see a lot of people saying yes to keeping an open mind. So I appreciate that because there's so much misinformation out there that that I want to just encourage you to know that what I'm going to tell you might challenge you. But if we look around, for a lot of us, what we're doing isn't currently working. So thanks for keeping an open mind with me, and we're going to get going. I know that's why a lot of you are here tonight. You should have received some handouts in an email before you logged on to the webinar tonight. If you did not, don't worry. We will send those in a follow-up email tomorrow. You don't need to have them in front of you, but they might be helpful. For those of you who are tuning in after this recorded call, there'll be links to the handouts that you can use while you watch the webinar. But if you have the handouts, I want you to take them out because there's a question on the first handout, and it is, we have to think of food as our blank. We have to think of food as our blank. I want you, if you can, to throw in the question screen what you think the answer to this question is. Food should be our blank. What do you guys think? I have some great answers that are right on. Everyone has said this so far. Food should be our fuel. I love it. It looks like everyone got it right. Food should be our fuel. We need to look at that as our fuel tank. So if we think of our body as the vehicle we're driving through life, and we are putting this kind of stuff in our fuel tank, what do you think the end result is going to be? What do you think the end result is going to be if we're putting a bunch of junk in our fuel tank? It's going to be not great. And what's going to happen to the vehicle that we're driving through life? Our vehicle is going to start breaking down and getting sick. So I want you to, and slow and sluggish. I love, Christy, that you said that. It's just going to start not working like it should. So we need to think of our food as our fuel and our body as our vehicle that we're driving through life that we only get one of. And if you live in, maybe you live in a big city, or if you live in Madison, we have something called the Beltline, which is kind of the busy traffic area. And I always tell people that if your check engine light went on when you're on the Beltline in your actual vehicle you're driving, would you get it to the shop as soon as possible? And most people say, absolutely. I don't want to get stuck in traffic on the side of the road, especially in the winter, and hold everybody else up. That sort of thing. And I think a lot of us take better care of our vehicles, our actual vehicles, than we do our own bodies. So what I'm going to encourage you to think about right now is what is your personal check engine lights? What are some things that your body as a vehicle is telling you that aren't going very well right now? So for example, I've got some common check engine lights up here. I've got things like, gaining weight around your midsection. I have this boy here that has acne, cravings for chocolate at 2 p.m. or 9 or 10 at night, back pain, joint pain, depression. How many of you are tired at about 2 or 3 p.m? Or maybe you have digestive issues. I put this girl that's kind of lifting her shirt up and touching her belly on here on purpose, because a lot of my clients assume that if you're skinny, you are healthy. You're healthy. And that is just not the case. A lot of my thinnest clients that I work with have the most health problems. So just because you're thin doesn't mean you're healthy. And if she would have put her shirt down, she would look thin, but I'm trying to show you that digestive issues are huge, huge, huge in this country. So if you are open, just kind of in the question screen, I won't say your name, but what are some of your check engine lights that you're dealing with right now that you'd like to see improve? Someone said, I've got digestive issues, I've got weight gain. Anybody else willing to share their check engine lights? All of the above. Weight gain's another one. Okay. Joint pain. weight gain, you're tired, back pain, tired. I see a lot of tired, headaches, a lot of fatigue, cravings. So, a lot of people have those chocolate cravings. I was doing this presentation in a group of about 100 people at the seminar, and most of them were women. And when I asked, raise your hand if you have chocolate cravings, only 2 of them did. I knew that they were lying. So so I was joking with them about it, and a lot of them agreed that we've got cravings going on and digestive issues. Anxiety can be another one, lack of energy. So going through those, a lot of us have the same issues, and those are prime examples of check engine lights. So what I'm hoping you take away from tonight's presentation is some simple things that you can start doing to get rid of these check engine lights. And like I said, what I love about my job is I get to see people's check engine lights change and go away every day because of what they're doing with their food and lifestyle changes. So I got to see my check engine lights. I personally had chronic constipation that went away. My weight issues resolved. I was able to balance out my hormones, and I've had a great pregnancy with no problems. So it's been cool to see it in my own life and then in many of my clients' lives. So I want you to kind of keep those check engine lights in the back of your head as we move forward. So the information I'm going to share tonight is all about some simple things you can do to start switching off those check engine lights. And I would say the 3 biggest things that people say they feel better with by following what I'm going to tell you tonight is that their energy is better, their bloating, and their gas. Those in their cravings go away. So I guess that's 4th thing, bloating, gas kind of together. Those are the first check engine lights that typically go away when people implement the things that I'm going to be telling you tonight. So that's what you have to look forward to. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question. What are the 3 most prominent ingredients in our food supply right now? So to keep this interactive, to keep you guessing, want you to throw in the screen. What are the 3 most prominent ingredients? We've got some people guessing right away, but I want to see some more people interacting. Great. So we've got the 3 already up on the screen, and they are wheat, corn, and soy. So a lot of you got all 3 of those right. So nice work. We've got wheat, corn, and soy. I see a lot of sugar comments. Well, what we see is a lot of high fructose corn syrup, which is coming from the corn category. So you guys got it. Why do you think we are seeing so much more of these type of products or byproducts from these 3 foods in our food supply? Why are we seeing these in every single product? You guys got it. Cheap fillers. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Everyone's writing cheap. You're right on. So these are actually foods that are subsidized by the government, meaning that we have a lot of them, that farmers typically will lose money if the government's not subsidizing their incomes. So we have a ton of these products, and what they're used to, and a lot of people wrote this on the screen, is that they're cheap, but they also are used as fillers. So we're seeing the high fructose corn syrup, we're seeing wheat in so many different products, and we're seeing the byproducts of soy because they're cheap and we have so much of them. So this is one of the biggest ways that I think our food supply has changed in the last, let's say 100 years, is that we have so much more of these products in it. And I think that's correlating to maybe why a lot of us are feeling the way we're feeling, because we're eating a lot of this stuff. So the whole premise of tonight's talk, as far as the nutrition piece goes, is that we need to eat real food. And I have a little great grandmother down here to kind of help you remember what are going to be the 2 main rules that I give people to determine whether or not they should eat a food. So before I tell you what I use, I'd like you to put in the screen, how are you deciding what you're buying at the grocery store right now? How are you deciding what you're putting in your cart and what you're leaving on the shelf or in the refrigerator section? What are you thinking about when you're grocery shopping? Not processed and clean. I like that. What else are you using? Number of ingredients. You're looking at number of ingredients. Natural, clean foods. Shop the perimeter of a store. Mary, that's a great idea. When you shop the perimeter, all grocery stores are set up the same way. On the outside of the store is all the fresh food. And then on the inside of the store, they're going to have more of the processed foods that have those ingredients. Some people are saying less packaging, organic, nothing in the box. Yeah, not buying box foods, reading labels. You guys are doing a great job already. Minimal ingredients, less additives. Some people are having to do gluten-free. So those are all great things to think about. And I'm kind of thinking along the same lines. So if you want to jot this down, if you haven't heard this before, my number one rule is if you're looking at the label or it has a label or a box and you don't know what the ingredient is, should you be eating it? That's question number one. What do you guys think? If food is our fuel and, whatever we're putting in our fuel tank, and if we're looking at that and it's a bunch of foreign words, it's probably not the best fuel source. So we want to make sure you know what the ingredients are. And the second rule is if your great-grandmother didn't eat the food, should you? So another way to say it is, was it around 100 years ago? That's kind of my test also that I use. Has it been around kind of for the test of time? Would your great-grandmother, would she have eaten it? Because I have really smart clients. I have clients that will say, well, I know what high fructose corn syrup is. I know what some of these ingredients are. But what I want to encourage people to remember is that just because you know what it is, you got to pull it through rule number 2 to great-grandmother actually eat it. So it's just a reminder that, rule number 2 always trumps rule number 1, even if you learn what that food additive is. So these are 2 real simple things. And I use this day in and day out for myself when I'm shopping and my clients. If you follow these 2 simple rules, you're going to be cleaning up your fuel sources significantly. So I want to encourage you to kind of keep those in the back of your mind. So based on that idea, we're going to play something called the label game. And what the label game is I want you guys to guess in the screen what this food is based on the ingredients. So I'm going to run through talking about what some of the ingredients are, and at the end I'll have you guess. So when you're reading labels, remember that the first ingredient is always the most prominent in the product. So say so this product, for example, soybean oil. Go figure, it's got soy in it. Soybean oil is the predominant ingredient in this one. And then it goes water, and then egg yolk, then sugar, salt, cultured non-fat buttermilk, natural flavors, which is being derived from soy, spices. And then we go down to some of these things that it gets a little sketchy. We've got dried garlic, dried onion, vinegar, phosphoric acid, and then xanthan gum. I want to talk a little bit about xanthan gum. Have you guys seen gums in your food before or on your labels? You're going to see that in a lot of products, especially dairy products, because xanthan gum is a thickener. But if we look at how many people have digestive issues in this country, and you think of the word gum and sticky, I have a lot of clients that once they get rid of the gums in their diet, their digestive issues get a lot better. So that is an example of not a great-grandmother food. Modified food starch. We have something called monosodium glutamate. A lot of people know that as MSG. Monosodium glutamate is something for some people that can cause migraine headaches, digestive issues. It's a flavor enhancer slash kind of preservative that you'll see in a lot of processed foods. We have artificial flavors. We have disodium phosphate, sorbic acid. So a lot of these are extra preservatives. And I can't even say a couple of the last ones. So we know that these are breaking both the ingredient rule and the great-grandmother rule. So based on the ingredients, I want you to guess what this is. So I've got some guesses so far. I've got salad dressing, which you are on the right track. One person has guessed exactly what kind of salad dressing this is. And it is actually ranch dressing. and ranch dressing. So who wants to guess what brand of ranch dressing this is? What's the famous brand that we probably at some point have all tried in our life? Hidden Valley. Awesome job, Cindy. You got it. And I don't know if Kraft makes it or not, but people are guessing Kraft. Hidden Valley is the answer to that question. So this is Hidden Valley ranch dressing. The reason I wanted to show you this is because Hidden Valley ranch dressing, ranch dressing in general, as a follow-up to this tomorrow, I'm going to send you a ranch dressing recipe that's super simple to make in your own kitchen and actually tastes better than this, that you don't have all the additives and preservatives. So I chose that, and I also chose it because I think at some point in our life, probably all of us have tried ranch dressing and just didn't really know what was in it. So that's why it's so important that you read your labels, because food product companies want us to buy their stuff. So they are going to tell us that their product is the best thing on earth. They're going to use words like low fat, high fiber, high vitamins and minerals. Those types of claims they're going to make. No trans fats, you'll see. Those types of claims, just because they're saying that doesn't mean that they're going to follow the great grandmother rules. So I encourage you not to trust the front of the packages and to actually flip the package over and go ahead and look at what's really going on in your food. I included a shopping list in part of your handouts to give you some brand ideas that are cleaner, that typically tend to follow the great grandmother rules. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So thanks for playing the label game. You guys did very well with guessing what that is. But you saw soy was the first ingredient in that. You see a lot of corn and soy and wheat products and byproducts in our food. So when I think of our body as being a vehicle that we're driving through life, our vehicle pulls up to a stoplight and we have three choices, depending on what it's telling us to do. So one of them is going to be a green light. So green light food is a great grandmother food, and you have this in your handouts too. So green light foods or great grandmother foods have stood the test of time. Red light foods are foods that she never ate. So Hidden Valley ranch dressing. She might have had the sour cream. She might have had parsley and some of the ingredients that are in the real version. But a lot of those preservatives were never part of her diet. So those are going to be red light foods like Hidden Valley ranch dressing. And then we've got yellow light foods. And a yellow light food is a food that great grandmother ate but might not work for you. So for example, some of my yellow light foods personally are nuts and seeds. If I eat a lot of nuts and seeds, it affects my digestion and my vehicle doesn't feel as well. For a lot of my clients, gluten might be a yellow light food. Some people are actually allergic. It becomes a red light that they can't do to, let's say, peanuts. So tonight we're going to be focusing mostly on green light foods, stopping red light foods. And in my programs and my DVDs and in my classes and when I work with people one-on-one, our job is to figure out what people's yellow light foods are if they have any. I don't want you to have a lot of yellow light foods, but sometimes when our bodies are under a lot of stress, yellow light foods can pop up. Or there's just foods that agree with you more so than others. So tonight we're focusing mostly on green light foods and then stopping the red light foods. So in order to give you a couple tips at the end of the presentation that I have seen over and over again totally change people's lives, we need to lay a little bit more of a foundation on what are proteins, what are carbs, and what are fats. And I want to talk a little bit about each one of those. And protein, carbs, and fats are called your macronutrients. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about macronutrients. So I'd like to start out with protein. I want to ask you, what foods right now do you consider proteins, or what foods should we put into the protein category? If you want to type those in your question screen, that would be great. So I'm seeing a lot of great answers. I'm seeing meat and dairy, which is absolutely true. Eggs is another one. I like that. I have someone saying in the protein category, they have a fruit listed. And actually, fruit are going to be in the carbohydrate category. So when I ask you what foods are in the carb category, you can put that in the next time around. We got a lot of meat. We got cheese. You guys are hitting it. I saw 2 comments about a legume and a bean. Beans and legumes. And actually, you're not wrong in that they do have a little protein, but they're actually mostly carbohydrates. So I'm going to put those in the carbohydrate category. So when I ask you carbohydrates, again, just like the fruit, you can put beans and legumes into the screen at that time. Poultry, you're absolutely right. I also saw someone put nuts. And nuts, again, you're not incorrect. There is a little bit of protein, but there's actually a lot more fat. So nuts and seeds I put in the fat category. So again, you're not wrong. Yogurts, you're going to see also in this category. So you guys hit most of them. So the poultry, things like steak and red meat, eggs fall in this category. We have cheese and other dairy products like yogurt fall in this category. One thing I didn't see anyone mention was fish or shellfish. So that's going to be a big source of protein. And then finally, we have this picture that looks a little fuzzy on the screen. Does anybody think they know what that is supposed to be? Gelatin. Gelatin. Yes, I see a lot of people answering that right, either because they've heard me present before or it really looks like gelatin. I'm not sure. But gelatin, absolutely. And how did great-grandmother get gelatin into her diet? She wasn't eating Jello. Does anybody know how great-grandmother got gelatin into her diet? Someone commented that she made broth, bone marrow. So the bone marrow is actually going to be more fat, but you're on the right track. She would actually make bone broth. So this is a picture here of my homemade bone broth. Great-grandmother would have, oops. Sorry about that. I just way fast forwarded here. Didn't mean to do that. I got to go back. So now you've got some answers to the other questions I'm going to ask you. I apologize. That the great-grandmother got bones through making, or got gelatin through making broth. She wouldn't waste any part of the animal. So what I did is I took some bones and added water and some other ingredients. And as a follow-up to this seminar, I will send you the recipe on how to make your own homemade bone broth. And what's great about bone broth when you include the whole animal in your diet is that you get some anti-inflammatory proteins that you don't get from other parts of your diet. So by adding gelatin, you're eating the whole animal. And that gelatin helps lower inflammation. And really, a lot of disease states in our body start with inflammation. Even obesity, cancer, diabetes, a lot of these things that we're struggling with in this country today start with inflammation. So by adding gelatin to your diet, you can see a huge decrease in inflammation, which is really exciting. I call it a VIP, a very important protein, because it's something easy to add to your diet that makes a huge difference for people. Now I say easy to add, and people I've seen look at me and say, I'm never making bone broth, you're dreaming. So making bone broth is the #1 way to get it in your diet. The second best way to get broth or gelatin into your diet would be to use a supplemental powder. I'm a real food person first, so this is going to be the best way, but there are also other ways, and I'm realistic that people are busy and not everyone likes to cook and has access to this stuff. So the blue canister that I'm showing you on the screen right now is something called hydrolyzed gelatin. What hydrolyzed gelatin does is it's a way to get gelatin into your diet, but you're able to mix it with any soft food or liquid. So when you mix it with any soft food or liquid, it's able to, you can put it in smoothies, you can put it in your tea in the morning, you can mix it with applesauce. It's a way to get gelatin into your diet that is very, very helpful at lowering inflammation, but doesn't change, just an easy routine to get into. What's great, no change or texture or taste, no change in texture or taste when you put this in your food. So it's a great product to use. And I'll tell you where to get it in just a second. There's another type of gelatin. A lot of you might be familiar with a product called Knox Gelatin. And what Knox Gelatin we know does is if you need a hot liquid to dissolve it, and then when you put it in the refrigerator, it'll thicken and almost look like that bone broth. So you can make jello and marshmallows and all sorts of fun stuff with that type of gelatin. And that's in the red canister from Great Lakes Gelatin. It's called the Joint Care Collagen in the reddish orange canister. Someone asked, is that one tasteless too? I would say honestly that it has a little bit more of a smell than a taste to it. But the blue canister you can't taste at all. And that's called hydrolyzed, and the orange canister, orangish red, is called non-hydrolyzed gelatin. Now, they don't use chemicals to process the gelatin, but the orange canister is a little bit less processed than the blue. Most of my clients use the blue on a regular basis, and then they use the orange canister for specific problems, specific recipes. So if you try to make jello, and you have on your handouts a link to my blog to make your own homemade jello without the additives and colors and all that stuff. If you try to use the blue canister, the hydrolyzed gelatin, it will never thicken. So if you want your recipe to thicken, you need to use the non-hydrolyzed gelatin. So for those people who live in the Madison area, the blue canister of gelatin can be found at Woodman's grocery stores in the protein powder aisles in the front of the store. Woodman's grocery stores, protein powder aisles in the front of the store. For those of you who live outside of the Madison area, the blue canister of the collagen is very easy to order right online from gelatininnovations.com. And as a follow-up to this, or if you're listening after, you're going to have links available where you can find the information on how to order it. So it's very simple to order no matter where you're from. So that's the blue canister. Now, if we switch over to the orangish red canister, you are going to find that either online again. Typically, people are ordering maybe from Amazon, the orange canister, or if you're in the Madison area, again, you're going to go to Woodman's grocery stores, and you are going to find that in the natural baking section. So those are the two places that you find the different gelatin. So the blue canister at Woodman's is up in the protein powder vitamin aisles, and the orange canister is in the natural baking section. So I want you to remember they have different purposes. Now, if you're taking this as a supplement to help lower inflammation in your body, you want to make sure that you are trying to do 1 to 2 tablespoons a day. Typical recommendation is 2 tablespoons per day. 2 tablespoons per day, which is 1 scoop in the blue canister. And the one thing I didn't mention is the green canister in between here. The blue and green canister are the same type of gelatin. They're the same type of gelatin. You typically have to order the green canister online, maybe from somewhere like Amazon, but you have to order 6 of those cans at a time. So the blue, I think, falls into a little bit better price point. So I use the blue canister, and then you just have to remember to use them for the purpose. My clients usually use between 2 tablespoons and 6 tablespoons a day if they're trying to lower inflammation in the body. And I have seen that it has done fantastic things for people as far as lowering inflammation, joint pain specifically, lower back pain. And it also can help with weight loss because it keeps you full. It's 100% protein, no carbohydrates, and no fat in this product. And it's tasteless, so it's really easy to use. It is safe for kids, but we don't want it to be their main source of protein. But most of my clients will use it in their kids' stuff if they're, as we'll talk about later, out of balance with their proteins and carbs. So before we move on to the next topic, I want you to let me know if you have any more questions about gelatin, or some, you're going to also be see that it's called collagen. This is new for a lot of people that haven't heard me talk before. So if you have anything that you want to ask, please do that now before we move on. So most of the proteins you are going to see come from the animal-based products. We'll be talking about some of the other foods in just a minute. Someone asked if the collagen is in Janesville, at the Woodman's in Janesville. That's a great question. I was told that most of the Wisconsin stores are going to be carrying them. I haven't, of course, confirmed that, but the buyer did tell me that they were going to be bringing it in many of the Woodman stores across Wisconsin. So I would check, and if it's not there and you're interested in purchasing it, I would talk to the management, and because the Woodman's in Madison's definitely have it in the protein powder aisle. So if you're checking the protein powder aisle at the Woodman's, someone else said they couldn't find it in Janesville. Talk to the management there, because I know they can get it because the other Woodman's are carrying it. So it's going to be at the front of the store, not in the baking aisle. So the green and blue canister are typically something you can add to any food, cold or hot, and it should dissolve. If it's really cold, like say a little bit of fruit juice, you're going to have to let that dissolve a little bit before it completely goes away. But yes, those are things that you can add to applesauce, soups. They're very versatile, smoothies, that sort of stuff. Any cold or hot liquid or soft food, those work really well in. That's a great question. Both the blue and the green. All right. Any other questions? You guys have great questions. I just want to make sure everyone fully understands the whole gelatin thing, because I think this is something that I've just seen change so many people's lives that I really wanted to share it with you tonight. All right, so we're going to move on to the next category. One other quick question: can you take too much? Like I said, most people are going to be between the 2 and 6 tablespoons a day. You do have to listen to your vehicle, because everybody responds differently. And I've had literally over 1,000 people try the collagen, and I've had a couple people that it just didn't work well with their system for whatever reason. But I would say 99.9% of people that I work with, they do fantastic on it. And that is the reason that I definitely recommend it. So if you're saying, but I always say start slowly, listen to your vehicle, make sure you're not getting any check engine lights from it, and then you can add slowly. But the common dose is 2 tablespoons a day if you're looking at lowering inflammation specifically. One other question before we move on: is this protein powder better than other protein powder options? Absolutely. And the reason why is because we don't eat the whole animal anymore. We don't make bone broths. We don't consume. We just eat a lot of the muscle meat, and that can be very inflammatory. So by adding gelatin to your diet, that helps get in the 2 anti-inflammatory proteins called proline and glycine. They help your liver detoxify, and just that overall anti-inflammatory process that these amino acids help with are not found in high amounts in other protein powders. That's why I recommend gelatin, and in my cookbooks and in my blog recipes and everything, you don't see any other protein powders besides gelatin. A lot of the other protein powders are going to have fillers and artificial things and artificial sweeteners and a bunch of stuff that we don't know what it is. And whey protein powder, for example, has the same amino acid structure as muscle meat, where gelatin is different, and that's why it helps lower inflammation. So if you're eating a bunch of muscle meat and whey protein powder, I've had people have increased inflammation in the body. So you just have to be careful with some of that kind of stuff. But that's why this is the only protein powder I personally recommend. So that's a great question. All right, so I want to keep us on time tonight. We've got some other things to go over. What's in the fat category? What do you guys think's in the great grandmother fat category? great grandmother fat category. You got it, Cindy. I told you guys to say nuts. Nuts. You got what else? Butter, avocados. You guys got a sneak peek at this slide before, so you're hitting some things you saw. Seeds, oils. You're right, Mary. There are some oils, but there are also some specific oils. Butter and lard. And someone said coconut oil. Yes, you guys are guessing a lot of the great grandmother fats. So just want to make a few notes. This is a picture of lard. Now, the biggest difference between lard of 100 years ago and lard of today is that the pigs are not eating what they're supposed to. They're eating a lot of corn and soy. So that's going to affect the types of fats that are in lard. So I actually don't recommend lard unless you're getting it from a farmer that is feeding their pig a more traditional diet. Also, the rendering process can use a lot of chemicals and stuff, so you have to be careful of lard. But lard is a great grandmother fat that if it's coming from a good source, I don't necessarily mind. Butter makes everything better. I don't know if you've heard that before. Butter's been around for thousands of years. Mediterranean grandmothers would have had olive oil. Nuts and seeds fall in the fat category. Something called ghee, Ghee. Ghee is a clarified butter from India that doesn't need refrigeration. So that's something that has been around for a very long time. We've got tropical grandmothers eating coconut oil, other coconut products, avocados. We've got some cream here. So those all are examples of the types of fats in our diet that are very traditional. Now, most of the fats that we are consuming today are coming from what sources? What sources are most of our fats coming from in today's world? Does anybody know? What types of oil? Where are the oils? Where are those oils? What are they made up of? Vegetable oil. You got it. So soybean oil, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil. Any of those sound familiar? Grapeseed oil. All of those type of oils fall into a category of oil fats called polyunsaturated fats. And I just like to shorten that right up and say a PUFA. So most of the fats that we are consuming in today's society are PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. And I always want you to remember this, and people don't forget it, is that PUFAs make you puffy. You saw the picture of what I used to look like. I was very puffy. I was eating a lot of PUFAs. So one of the biggest changes I see in my clients is when they get those processed oils out of their diet that we've increased by huge percentages in the last 50 years. PUFA, P-U-F-A, stands for polyunsaturated fatty acids. Someone asked, how do I spell that? I'm just abbreviating it. PUFAs make you puffy. I want you to really think about that. And we've increased our PUFA intake by such a significant amount, and we're actually lowering our intake of these types of fats. And we are getting fatter, we are getting sicker, in parentheses, and we are getting puffier. And I think it has a lot to do with our fats in our diet. So I know that this might be going against some of the things that you've heard are good for you as far as fats go, but really want you to take a hard, think back to what great grandmother had done and looking at how much disease that we have and how much more PUFAs that we are intaking. But there's one of these fats that I want to talk about specifically, and that's coconut oil. So I have Tropical Traditions coconut oil up on the screen, and that's one of the kind of brand that I buy. But coconut oil is a medium chain fatty acid. And what that means is your body can use it more for an instant energy source. So it's got some properties for weight loss and increasing metabolism. But it also, because of its chemical structure, does not go rancid very easily when it's exposed to heat, light, and oxygen. So it's a very stable oil. And cultures that have a lot of coconut products in their diet before they get into the PUFA issues have had really good heart health and really good metabolism and that sort of thing. Another property to coconut oil, besides the fact that it's a medium chain fatty acid, is that coconut oil has specific fatty acids that can help support your digestive tract. So for example, it's got a type of fat in it, a fatty acid that almost has like an antimicrobial, antibacterial effect in it. And so for people that have an imbalance in their gut bacteria, coconut oil can be very helpful at helping that out. I also have like a deodorant recipe, for example, because it's good at killing bacteria so you don't stink. So coconut oil is such a versatile fat that I love to share. I call it my protein with gelatin was a VIP. Coconut oil is a VIF. It's a very important fat. And again, I've seen it change people's lives by adding it. Number one thing, chronic constipation. People add coconut oil enough to their diet. I see huge changes for the positive in using coconut oil to help with that because of the antibacterial effect of it. But with that said, I mentioned it's used, medium chain fatty acid, but you also have to watch out because of those fatty acids for the poo factor. I know this sounds kind of funny for the poo factor, but if you take too much and your body's not used to it and you get that bacteria in your gut kind of rocking and rolling in a certain way, it can have a laxative effect. And I tell the story, I had a client who didn't listen to this and went from kind of zero to never having it to having too much and then went on a run. That didn't end up too well. So I always say, watch how much you're taking. So I recommend starting with a half a tablespoon a day of coconut oil. And then a lot of my clients that have constipation issues are working up to 2 tablespoons a day as a supplement. Not only constipation, but also for weight loss, because fat helps you stay full and satisfied. That's one of the main purposes of the fat. So, there's a variety of recommendations with coconut oil and how much to take, but ways you can use coconut oil is you can cook with it. Now, you see expeller pressed on that Tropical Traditions label. Expeller pressed or refined coconut oil doesn't taste like anything. So if you don't want everything to taste like coconuts, you need to buy that type of coconut oil, and you'll have a reference for Spectrum brand on your sheet, on your grocery list. Also, if you want it to taste like coconuts, then it's fine, but make sure that you are getting the unrefined at that point. Somebody asked, can I take it straight from the jar? Absolutely. People supplement it. Just take a spoonful of it. I personally can't do that. But I have a lot of clients that can. So yes, you can take it as a supplement. You can cook with it. How I get it in my diet is I put it in my tea in the morning. Some of my clients, if they have just a tiny bit of coffee, they'll put it in a latte type situation. It melts right in there. And that's how I get it in my diet daily. And that has really helped with my puffiness and digestion and my overall weight loss and cravings. A lot of us have cravings because we don't have enough fat in our diet and we have too many carbs in our diet. So those are the 2 different types of coconut oil. If you want it not to taste like it, make sure you're getting the right kind. But again, this is a VIF. And these are some other things that fat can do for you. You can use fat as the energy reserve. It helps us feel full and satisfied. It helps slow the release of carbs into our bloodstream, and it helps us absorb our fat-soluble vitamins. In my DVD sets, in my classes, and my work with people one-on-one, the biggest pushback I get is about the fat information that I share with people. But what I've seen over the years is that when you don't have enough fat in your diet, you're hungry all the time and you end up eating way more than you should, especially in the carb category. They help you feel full and satisfied, and we're a low-fat nation, and I always say, is it working for you? And when people add fat to their diet, they're amazed at how much, fewer, how much they're eating less food and getting great results, but they're adding more fat, which is kind of one of those things you have to unlearn to learn. So any other questions about coconut oil before I move on to our last category, the carbohydrate category? All right. Someone asked, where can you get it? Tropical Traditions, you order online, which you'll be receiving a link for tomorrow. You can order that right online. Otherwise, the Spectrum brand in most grocery stores is found either in the natural section or by the other oils, or sometimes in the ethnic aisles. So a lot of grocery stores are carrying coconut oil now, or health food stores. And then if Tropical Traditions, which is my favorite company, especially if you wait for a free shipping coupon, and if you've never ordered from them before, I'll give you a special link that you get a cookbook with, or like a coconut oil cookbook with, and it's got a lot of great recipes in it. That's my favorite company as far as price point goes and quality. It's a great question. Is it okay for kids? Absolutely. Absolutely. Many of my clients that have children are using coconut oil all the time, so completely safe for kids and adults. Great question. Amount for kids? I mean, for kids, probably you're not supplementing with it at all. You're probably just using to cook within their foods. So probably more of just, your sauteing vegetables or whatever you're making with it. It's okay to have in their food, but mostly the people that are supplementing with it on purpose are my adult clients. Great question. Is it okay for pets? Yes, I love to tell the story of one of my clients' pets, and her little fluffy white dog was actually named Coconut. But Coconut was getting a little overweight, and they started feeding coconut oil, and she slimmed down very quickly. So actually, it's absolutely safe for pets, and for some pets, it actually can heal their skin. If they've got some skin issues. So coconut oil is great for skin health too. Well, that's the person's dog's name. So maybe your coconut, Jeanette, needs some coconut oil in his or her diet too. That's pretty funny. So that's the coconut oil. So I want to share that information with you. The next category is typically everybody's favorite category. And that is the carbohydrate category. So what foods are left that we're going to put into the carbohydrate category? Here. Breads, fruits, veggies, pastas, rice, absolutely. You guys are hitting it pretty well. Yeah, so for sake of time, I'm just going to pull these up here. And these are all the carbohydrates that fall in, or foods that fall in the carbohydrate category. So we have things like grains and cereals, breads, all that stuff fit into the carb category. We've got fruits and vegetables, whether they're grown above ground or below ground, all carbohydrates. Corn is also carb. I kind of put that in the grain category. We have all fruit. We've got cane sugar. Sucrose is in the carb category. We've got beans, and we've got some milk is going to be in the carb category. Beans and legumes. So all carbohydrates end in OSE. So carbohydrate, what's the carbohydrate in fruit? Does anybody know the main carbohydrate in fruit? Fructose, you got it. So fructose is in fruit. What about, what is table sugar? I already told you it was actually, I don't need to ask you, it's sucrose. So sucrose is table sugar, white table sugar. What is the main carbohydrate in most grains? This is where it gets a little bit tricky. We've all heard of fructose. What's the main carbohydrate in grains that ends in ose? Dextrose. There is some dextrose. That's a pretty good guess, Connie. There's dextrose. Glucose. You got it, Jeanette. Glucose is the main carbohydrate in most grains. And then beans. Do you guys think it's beanose? That's the only joke you're going to get tonight. I'm not typically that funny. So it's not beans. It's typically glucose and cellulose in beans. And then above ground vegetables is usually glucose and cellulose. And then, of course, dairy products are going to be lactose and galactose. So all these types of carbs have different oses in them. But the one thing I want you to think about as far as the typical American breakfast is if we break it down, it's typically a bowl of cereal. And maybe some skim milk, and then probably maybe a glass of orange juice or banana. What do you think happens to that person's blood sugar that is eating the typical American breakfast? Major spike. Yep. So most of us that are on the typical American diet have a lot of oses. It oses, and this is what happens to their blood sugar. They get that major spike and it skyrockets. And what happens is that we get that spike, and then our body uses our insulin and gets that sugar, that blood sugar inside of our cell really quickly. Then our blood sugar crashes. And then when we crash, how do you guys feel when your blood sugar crashes? How do you feel? Tired. Absolutely. Lousy, tired. I see in here. What else? A lot of fatigue going on. Anyone get a little crabby? Weak, exhausted. Crabby, yes. People are saying, yes, I get crabby. So typical signs of low blood sugar can be fatigue, uh, getting a little short-tempered. Also, it can be headaches, nausea. I lose my focus and concentration when my blood sugar gets low. I can't think clearly. So the one thing I want you to remember that is so, so, so important, so please listen, is that when your blood sugar's low, it raises the stress hormones in your body. And a lot of us already have enough stress going on. When our stress hormones come up, not only do we have those symptoms that I just mentioned, but we also get a lot of cravings. And then we typically crave things that are not great for us. We crave things that will give us another blood sugar spike, and then we crash. And then we want more bad food because we're in a bad mood. And then we get on the roller coaster, which leads to type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult onset diabetes, but so many children have it now, they have to call it type 2. And what's interesting about this is that it's completely preventable with your diet and lifestyle choices, that disease state. And I think 75 million Americans are diabetic and pre-diabetic right now, which is like mind-blowing to me. What I love about my job is I see people doing some balancing techniques with their blood sugars. All of a sudden their numbers improve. And I've even seen people get off their medications with their doctor's permission. But like I said, low blood sugar is really stressful. And this type of pattern, ups and downs, is also really stressful on the body. And when we get into low blood sugar and high stress hormones, it's hard to lose weight. Your check engine lights are constantly going off, depending on what they are, whether it's cravings or fatigue and those sorts of things. So there's some easy, simple things that you can do to prevent the spikes from happening. So this is kind of what we're here to learn tonight, is that these two simple balance rules. So for those of you who worked with me before, or have heard this talk before, this is going to be familiar. But out of the thousands of people that I've, worked with, some one-on-one, some in my classes, just testimonies that I get in on my website, is nobody was doing this. Nobody. That's why most of us feel like junk, and we've got a ton of check engine lights going on. So the first balance rule is do not eat carbohydrates by themselves. Do not eat carbohydrates by themselves, because what happens to your blood sugar? When you eat a carb by itself, you're going to see on the screen that it spikes your blood sugar, and then you crash and you get on that roller coaster and you increase your stress hormones, which is never a good thing. The other thing I want to point out is don't eat proteins alone. And this is a huge new thing for people, especially if you've done the Atkins diet or maybe even the Paleolithic way of eating, is that it's a huge lot of protein and no carbs. If you don't eat enough carbohydrates with your proteins, it actually lowers your blood sugar. So you get the same high stress response. That's why people who, I worked in an office where both of the assistants were on the Atkins diet, and they were eating this high protein, crazy stuff. And none of us wanted to come to work because they were so crabby. Did they lose weight at first? Yes, they did, because they initiated their stress hormones to help with weight loss. But eventually, no one can stay on a high protein diet because they get all the signs of low blood sugar. And so they ended up gaining all their weight back, plus some. So when you're looking at a diet that's balanced and that you're able to maintain long term, you need to think about balancing it with proteins and carbs in a way that's going to help you feel your best. So an example of a balanced breakfast would be to take eggs, which are a protein-fat combination, and then you could have some fruit with it. Do you see how that's a protein? And if you cook them, you could cook them in coconut oil. So you have a healthy fat that's kind of going right in the middle, and you've got the carbs in the fruit, and then you got your proteins in the eggs. So I gave you some simple meal and snack ideas that you can look at. And another way that you can get more ideas is on my blog and also in my cookbook and in the DVD program where the cookbook comes. It gives you ideas on how to balance your meals and snacks. So dinners can be as simple as you pick the steak, and then you have a sweet potato with butter. So the steak's your protein, the sweet potato is your carb, and the butter is going to be your fat. Protein, carb, fat, done. You can use your gelatin as a protein and balance that with, like I said, applesauce. So the gelatin's your protein, the carbohydrates your applesauce. You can use vegetables, so carrot sticks and a string cheese. String cheese is your protein, the carrot sticks are your carbs. So I want people to start out by just following these 2 rules. And I know it can get, it gets more complicated from that, but just starting to say, I'm going to pick my protein first and then add my carbohydrate. That information alone can help you start looking and feeling your very best. That information alone. I get more into detail of exactly what the ratios are in the classes and DVD programs and things like that. But just starting out with eat your carbohydrate or eat your protein and add your carb. These 2 balance rules have literally transformed people's lives. It's following it as simple as that. So I know that it's a little bit after 7:30 and I want to honor everybody's time. So I want you to kind of keep this in the back of your mind, but I want to show you a couple other things really quick. And then I'm going to answer all the questions at the end of the call. So for those of you who have to go, you can do that. But I want to get to a couple other things very quickly here before we end our call. You've had such great questions that it's just taken a little bit longer. So I want to go back to those check engine lights that we mentioned in the beginning, that your vehicle's constantly talking to you. And you need to listen to it before it starts really breaking down and you're in a bad place like I was. And a lot of my clients come to me and they're not in a good situation. And the best way to do it is 1, eat the real food. And then 2, the second step is maybe to add gelatin or coconut oil. But balancing your blood sugar is absolutely key to helping you start healing and lowering the stress in your body. So really want to encourage you to listen to your body. Think about your check engine lights. And based on that, what are you going to do about it? Because a lot of people will, listen to webinars. I went to seminars and classes and yeah, it's like, hopefully everyone learned something tonight, but then they don't change. So action creates change. So I just want you to throw in the chat screen one thing that you're going to change. What are your action steps going to be tonight to help you start reducing your check engine lights? What is one action step that you're going to take? So if you want to share what's come up for you, what you've learned tonight, combined your proteins and carbs. Love that. That's huge. Thanks. Anybody else want to share what their action step's going to be tonight? Try the gelatin. Love that goal. Gelatin. We've got some gelatin people on board. Lots of gelatin people. Looking at the coconut oil, blood sugar balance, combining the proteins and carbs. Eat your protein first, do your carbs. Those are all great goals. Balancing meals and snacks. So even though those balance rules might sound fairly easy to you, like I said, no one that I've ever worked with is doing it. Most of us are eating a lot of carbs and, driving our blood sugars all over the place. So I want you to encourage you to take action. And this is one of my friends, Angie, that has her testimonial here. And still today, this was from about 4 years ago. She's maintained her weight. Her digestion is still great. And so this stuff works. I see it working every day. That's why I really, like I said before, love my job. Just quickly, before we go, if you're interested in learning more about the details of the ratios and the balancing and all that stuff, I do have an at-home study course, a DVD set, that goes into all of this stuff in more detail. You get 8 DVDs, you get my cookbook that has all those great balanced recipes, real food, and people love it. I've sold over 1,000 cookbooks, and I always get, even kids love the recipes in the cookbooks. I always say it's not tofu and twigs, it's real food. And then the DVD series tells you how to listen to your body to figure out your check engine lights, how to find out your ratios and just learn more and educate yourself on how real food can change your life. I just got a testimonial from a client that stayed after a class that I did a couple weeks ago, and she said, I bought your DVDs a year ago, and I lost 100 pounds just by following your guidelines, and I was just in shock, and that just made my day. So she said it was the first time I actually feel like I'm healing my metabolism is by listening to your DVDs and learning how to balance my blood sugars. So she's still got some weight to lose, but she had been she's like, I've tried every diet, and this is the first one that's actually worked. So that was just a huge encouragement, and just kind of a wow. So I'm giving you guys a great deal on the DVD series if you're interested in that, and I will send a follow-up email with that special price. Also, if you're just interested in the recipe collection, some recipes, some menu ideas, you can check out the special price in the cookbook that I'd be happy to offer to you. But if you'd like to talk to me more about some specific health problems, I do a free 20-minute consult. I do work with people one-on-one, but I'm having a baby in about 3 weeks. So those one-on-one consultations would probably have to start in May. But if you'd like to chat with me about potentially starting after that, that is an option to see if we would be a good fit. So I'll send this all in a follow-up email. And speaking of the follow-up email, I'm going to send you tomorrow the email that is going to have all the resources and links to the ranch dip, the broth, the gelatin, the coconut oil, all the stuff we talked about tonight. And you just are going to have to accept that email. It's just going to ask you to approve that you can be added to that specific list to receive that email. So once you do that, you'll get the email, and you'll be able to get all the resources in that email. And I also have some green lights. The Green Light Foods grocery store tour is coming up on January 21st, the 18th, and 25th. If you're in the Madison area, we will send you links to those too if you're interested in us just showing you where these foods are. So that's just a little bit if you want more information, because I want to stay on time, and I see there's lots of questions. So I would like to answer some of those questions for you before we turn in tonight. But here's Susan's testimony about how the program has changed her life. And I just want to remind you, the fuel you choose will affect your overall health. So I'm going to get to answering the rest of the questions. So for those of you who have to go, thank you for coming tonight. And please stay on the line if you want to learn more and ask questions. I hope everybody learned at least one new thing. First question is juicing beneficial? Juicing, the one thing about juicing is, remember, that's all carbohydrate. So if you're going to juice, make sure that you're adding a protein to that. Some people add gelatin powder or something so that you don't get huge spikes in your blood sugars. So juicing can be beneficial, but it can also affect blood sugar levels. So just make sure that you're thinking about the balance rules when you're juicing. Is chicken a protein? Is chicken a protein if it's not red meat? Yes. So any type of poultry is going to fall into the protein category. Poultry, whether chicken, turkey. So that's a great question. The next one is, how soon with the balancing tool do you start to notice feeling better? Great question, Jessica. It really depends on the type of, who you are, I guess, what your background is and how long you've been eating a certain way. So most of my clients, just by doing the protein carb within the first couple of weeks, some of people within the first couple of days notice a huge difference in how they feel. So it really depends on the person. But I say within the first 2 weeks that people will notice it pretty significantly. So that's a great question. All right. Is coconut flour good to cook and bake with? Coconut flour for a lot of my clients works really well, especially if you have to be on a gluten-free a plan. The one thing I'll say about coconut flour is that is that it has very specific properties as far as how it bakes. So you just really need to make sure that you are using recipes that call for coconut flour. The only thing I've seen problematic is because it's high in cellulose. Some people with digestive issues, it can cause a little bit of problem. But I would say for most of my clients, it's fine. Just make sure that you're using recipes and not just substituting that in for like a recipe that will call for like wheat flour, because it just the consistency is so different. That's a great question. The next one is, if you're purchasing the gelatin, do you need to purchase both kinds, or would you recommend one over the other? Great question, Christy. You don't have to purchase both kinds. I would say the more versatile one is the blue canister, because it's easy to mix with any soft food or liquid. But remember, if you want to make Jello or something that thickens, you need to buy the orange canister. So I have both because I use both types. But most of my clients, if they're going to pick one or the other, are going to pick the blue canister. That's a great question. What about almond flour is another one. Again, almond flour is going to, just remember there's a fair amount of fat in almonds, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So if your digestion can handle nuts and seeds, that can be an okay substitute. Most of the recipes that I have in my cookbook and things like that are flourless. But almond flour is going to have less of a dramatic impact on your blood sugar than, say, wheat flour is. Okay, so let me see. I got a couple more questions here. Do you know if you have neuropathy can be helped with this approach? I have clients that have all sorts of different types of health issues going on, and by changing eating real food, supporting your hormones, I've seen so many different types of people improve. I also, people with neuropathy, the gelatin powder I've seen actually really help with that. So I mean, no matter if you have disease states or not disease states, I've seen in general, changing your fuel to real food can help no matter what. But with your specific question, I would say yes, and even gelatin can help with that. Someone asked, is flaxseed a phytoestrogen or a xenoestrogen? Is it good or bad? Flaxseed is going to be a phytoestrogen. Xenoestrogens come from chemicals. Phytoestrogen is a plant base that you're going to consume. I particularly don't recommend flax because of that phytoestrogenic effect. I've seen it change women's cycles to not be great. And it can be, for a lot of people in their digestive tract, because of its bulking properties, can be very irritating. So because of hormone balance properties and sometimes the other digestive issues I've seen with it, I personally don't recommend flaxseed, but it is a phyto if you're ingesting it versus a xeno. That's a great question. Any other questions? We have some people still on the call, and I'd be happy to answer anything else if anything comes to mind. Oh, Wendy, I'm so happy to hear that. She just said she learned a lot tonight. No, thank you for coming. I'm getting a lot of thank yous. I appreciate that. Oh, and we have our friend from Hawaii signing off. And thank you everyone who's encouraging about the baby. Yeah, we're very excited about it. It's our first. So I know some of the stuff I shared with you tonight might be simple things, but like I said, some of these simple principles I've seen totally change people's lives. So it's very exciting to see. And I will be sharing this link because we recorded it. So share it with your friends and family if you found this information valuable, and watch your email for that follow-up with all the recipes and menu plan or recipes and ideas and links to the resources. And another thing I'll mention is, if you are watching this after the fact, there will be all these links right around that you'll be able to easily find and pass on to your friends. So okay, I gotta actually, I needed this refresher. That was great. So let me see if I've got any. Oh, I've got a couple other questions if you guys want to stay. Grain suggestions for kids that are gluten-free. Grain suggestions. Well, the coconut flour you can use. In my cookbook, I have some coconut flour recipes. Like I said, I've got some flourless treat recipes that kids really like. I know the chocolate ricotta mousse recipe people love as far as that goes. I mean, there's some gluten-free flours like a rice flour and some mixes that are actually pretty clean and don't have gums in it that you can replace. Just watch blood sugar, even for kids. Even for kids. Someone asked, what do I think about millet flour? Millet flour, again, is going to be gluten-free if you need to go gluten-free, but I don't have a lot of experience baking with millet flour as far as giving you feedback on the texture and taste of it. The only thing I can say is that I don't necessarily have a problem with it. You just have to be aware that all these types of flours, whether they're gluten-free or gluten-containing, will affect your blood sugar. So you want to make sure that you're eating them with enough fat and protein. Let's see. Are your live seminars mainly in Madison? Yes, Wendy. Right now they are mainly in the Madison area. My live stuff, but that's why I decided to do some webinars and some DVDs so that people can have access from around the country. So if you don't live in Madison, a great place to start if you want more information is the DVD set, which is a recording of a live class. And I also work with people one-on-one all over the country just via phone. So there's some definite ways to get this information and fine-tune it for yourself without having to be in the Madison area. That's what's great about technology. It's a great question. Okay. Ezekiel bread. I have a question about Ezekiel bread. Ezekiel bread is a sprouted grain bread, will have less impact on your blood sugars, but is not gluten-free. I know you didn't ask that, but I just wanted to point that out. You typically find that in the freezer section of most grocery stores if they carry it because there's no preservatives in it. So freezer section of most grocery stores, if you're in an area with Trader Joe's, it's not in the freezer section, but most places it is because of lack of preservatives. If you're shopping in Madison at Woodman's, you need to go in the back of the bakery section, so you have to walk through the donuts to get to that cooler where they carry the Ezekiel bread. I had a question on what are my thoughts on chia seeds. When I think about what great grandmother did, I'm not saying chia seeds weren't available back then, but you're going to see movements in this country, what I call fads, of certain products that people are recommending. Like we had the flaxseed movement, we're going to have the chia seed movement, and then what's going to be the next thing. And I'm just very leery of fads because a lot of this stuff, when you dig back to it, it's just companies trying to make a lot of money. So you're not going to see chia seeds in a lot of my things. The other thing with that is some of the fibers in that can also increase inflammation in the gut for some people. I've seen that problem take place. So I just stick to more, the foods that have been around forever. Not saying that chia seeds haven't, but in the amount that we are eating today. Great question. And I think I just deleted a question from somebody. If I didn't answer your question, could you retype it for me? Because I think I accidentally just pressed delete. I thought I'd answered it. So if anyone's still on that I didn't answer their question. I'm not getting it. So I apologize for that. Well, everybody, thank you for coming on. If I don't have any more questions, I'm gonna sign off and I'll let you guys get on with your evenings. But I hope you enjoyed the seminar, and remember, when you change what's on your plate, you can truly change your life.